morning, Kvell crew, and happy Tuesday. We got Thanksgiving coming up, or not Thanksgiving, we got 4th of July coming up. That's how with it I am this morning. But we have some questions from week 6 on the challenge, and I thought there's some good ones here, so it would be interesting for all to hear the answers to these questions. All right, so number 1, we do a good job of only eating real foods. What can we do to stack the deck for us for weight loss? Should we mix our weeks, high carbs, protein heavy, vegan, no dairy, etc., etc.? So here's the thing. You want to focus, number 1, on long-term. So long-term results, all right? And so we don't want to kind of like go too fast and too furious on anything, or what happens is we hit these plateaus. And so with weight loss, we want to work on the minimum effective dose whenever we possibly can. So in other words, if I can change one thing and it leads to results, I'm going to stay with that one thing until it kind of slows down. Then I add another thing and then another thing versus, adding 10 things all at once. And then when you hit a plateau, you have nothing left to change, right? You can't alter anything if you add everything in all at the same time. And so you want to do this in incremental steps, right? And so start with the smallest change that nets a result. And then as things slow down or as you hit plateaus, you have a whole bunch of things in your toolbox to use. All right, so a few things that you can add to your toolbox for weight loss. Again, if you're losing weight, I wouldn't change much of anything. If you're losing weight, just keep doing what you're doing and continue to lose weight. Now, weight loss is predominantly a simple equation of caloric deficit, right? So if you're burning more calories than you're consuming, you're going to lose weight over time, right? Now, there's a few ways to speed that up and slow that down and those types of things. And it's a little bit of metabolism manipulation. All right, so you can add in a little bit of intermittent fasting, which again, you don't have to get crazy about. So let's say you eat dinner at 6 o'clock, don't eat again until 10 o'clock the next day, right? So that does a few things metabolically that are also good for long-term health, but it also can help with weight loss for some people. Now that metabolic or intermittent fasting is not necessarily for everybody, but you're not extending your fasting period for that long. All of us fast as is, right? So all of us fast when we're sleeping. Or we should be. I mean, if you're getting up in the middle of the night and eating, that's a whole nother issue. So that's number 1. As far as manipulating carbohydrates, so manipulating carbohydrates is a way to increase metabolism and then decrease metabolism. So it is a very effective way to get some fat loss. And so we want to manipulate not necessarily carbohydrates, but caloric intake. And so, over the long run, you want to have periods of higher caloric intake and then periods of lower caloric intake, because what this does is it makes sure that the metabolism is always humming, right? So it increases it, decreases it, increases it, decreases it. And so when you increase the metabolism and then you decrease your caloric intake, you're going to lose more faster, right? And so you want to play with that a little bit, manipulate that a little bit. And one of the easiest ways to manipulate that is, of course, with carbohydrates. And so if you focus on eating carbohydrates on, let's say, workout days or post-workout and not on non-workout days, that'll automatically adjust that for you a little bit. And again, that's the importance of the free meal, which I touched base on a little bit last question and answer. Okay, so those are a few reasons or a few ways that you can stack the deck, but ultimately it comes down to, are you eating more food? In other words, you're eating more energy, consuming more energy than what you're burning over the long run. So over your lifetime, we want to look at how many calories or how much energy you're consuming versus how much you're expending. Okay, next, I have noticed that when I have broken the challenge and eaten white flour, or I even had a little cheese, I feel incredibly sick. The products I were eating were from local farms and bakeries. Is my body responding because it's no longer tolerant to those foods, or because maybe the sourcing needed to be better? It's most likely because your microbiome has now changed to digest the foods that you're currently eating. So the whole healthy, nutritious foods. And so when you add any food in there, it's very similar to like your dog, right? And so when you change food that your dog is eating, your dog is going to have gastrointestinal stress. Doesn't mean the food was necessarily bad for them or good for them. It just means that the gut bacteria was not used to digesting those foods, and so they get sick. And so that's why when we switch out foods for dogs, you do it a little bit at a time until you fully get switched over. Most likely the same thing here. Now, that's not to say you're not intolerant to it. That's not to say that there's not something wrong. I mean, we don't want you eating white flours in general, but a little here and there isn't going to have that big of an effect, but it will change your microbiome a little bit, because every time you eat something, everything we come in contact changes the gut bacteria in our microbiome a little bit. But more likely the reason you felt sick is because you weren't used to eating it. And so the bacteria that you had in your gut was used to the food you're currently eating, not the white flours, not the cheeses. This is my first challenge. How often do you recommend doing the challenges? So it depends a little bit, but for the most part, about every 3 to 4 months for the first year is a good starting point for challenges. Okay, then every time the challenge gets easier, it's easier to switch. It's easier to kind of clean your nutrition up. You get to where you need to faster, right? So instead of really being all in by the time you hit week 4, you're all in by the time you're at week 2, and then you're all in on week 1, right? And so the more times you do it, the better you get, the better these habits start to stick. And then after that first year, maybe you only need to do 2 that year, right? And then maybe it's once a year after that, just to kind of make sure that everything's dialed in and clean. But for the first year at least, we recommend about every 3 to 4 months you hit a challenge. Should I be eating something first thing in the morning prior to a morning workout? Yes and no. So it depends on when you're working out. It depends on how soon you can eat before you work out. If you're not eating, 45 minutes is about the minimum for it to kind of get into your system. So for you to eat it, get digested a little bit, get into your system a little bit so that it actually benefits you instead of just sticking in your stomach. So if you're going to get up about 60 minutes before you work out, and you eat some food, most of the time, most people are going to feel better in the actual training session. They're going to have a better workout. They're going to have more energy. Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. But some people feel a little bit better when they have some food in their belly. Now, if you're only eating about 30 minutes before you work out, probably not doing you a lot of good. It's not really getting into your system, because as soon as you start exercising, that blood is going elsewhere instead of to the digestive tract to focus on digestion. Okay. I think my biggest challenge has been portion control. What is your advice for making sure portions are adequate for nutritional purposes, but not too much in the way of calories, etc.? So just using the, I don't know if you remember, but we gave you some specific things using your hands, right? So protein servings about the size of the palm of your hand. And, if I was 7 feet tall, my palm would be bigger than how tall I am, which is 5'9", right? If you're 4'1", your palm's gonna be smaller than if you're 7 foot. And so you wanna use protein about the size of your palm, fat servings about the size of your thumb, veggie servings, 2 fist-sized servings of vegetables, and then we're looking at carbohydrate servings like a small handful. And again, when you use your hand to figure out what portions you should be using, it should equate to what the size of your body is, right? And then that is your base. So you get that down, you start with that as your base. And now once you have the base or a foundation, then you can alter off of that, right? So if you're not losing weight, but you want to lose weight, you can decrease that a little bit, right? But you can use the size of your hand for all of those different measurements. Okay, great challenge. We had really good results, guys. We're pumped. We will be announcing the winner later today. And we got our next challenge coming up on July 8th. So if you want to hop into a challenge, July 8th, let's get you in on this one, get you through the summer, healthy, lean, and with better habits.